Hello and welcome to the SI5 Improvement Podcast, where we bring to you supreme intelligence to self-improvement. With high performance from everyday people, because I truly believe that every single one of you has advice to give, value to share, that the listeners from this podcast can take into our own life, apply and improve. Because when you improve you improve your life. So welcome to the episode. On today's episode, we have Katya on the podcast, and she is going to talk about her daily lifestyle. And you know, it's great to have a specific achievement or accomplishment that we've achieved in our life, i.e. climbing a mountain or a lot of weight loss, which is brilliant. That's one purpose of people coming on the podcast. But the fundamentals that you have to live by on a daily basis are what provide you with these successes. Like, you can't climb a mountain unless you get yourself fit and live in a healthy and fit way. So it really is our daily lifestyle that is the fundamentals to any success we have in our life. And that was one thing that I understand that Katya lives by, and she's going to come on the podcast now and talk about how she lives her daily life, how she overcomes stress, doesn't become overwhelmed, how she balances her life for an overall well-being. And that's what we're all trying to accomplish in life, is happiness, contentment, well-being, and just getting through day-to-day life the best that we can. So, Katya, thank you very much for coming on the podcast, and welcome.
Hi, Harry. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on. How are you today?
I'm super. Having a great day so far.
And you're in America?
Yes, I'm in Fredericksburg, Virginia, which is about an hour south of Washington, D.C.
It's about 11 o'clock where you are, Katya?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. It's 4 o'clock here in England. You do come to England a bit, don't you? You were at the Tottenham Stadium, so you said.
Yes. In March, I kind of on a whim took a bucket list trip to London, and I met up with a friend from college, and we went to a match at Stamford Bridge, and we toured Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and just had a great time.
What did you think of the stadium?
Amazing. It was so great. It was such a fun day to go and actually go in the locker room and on the pitch or next to the pitch, and it was incredible.
Incredible, just like the team.
That's right.
So I mentioned about, you on the podcast to talk about your daily lifestyle, and lifestyle is so important. And like I said, it's the fundamentals of everything that we achieve, really. And one thing a lot of people struggle with now in life is there's a lot of stress. I don't know what life's like over in America. I've never been to America, but I can speak for England. It definitely seems like there's a lot of people on the rat race and on the hamster wheel of work and rush hour traffic and life's problems as well. I don't think there's a way of handling problems, and a lot of people are struggling with stress. So, first of all, are there times where you have struggled with stress or unhappiness?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been interesting for me to reflect on it because I've had in the past few years a change in the kind of stress that I've experienced. And that's been really challenging and interesting to navigate. And so I've had to add some tools to my tool bag in order to deal with different kinds of stress that I hadn't experienced before.
Right. And that's the thing, every stress is different, and we encounter new problems as we go along.
Right.
And did you say there's a general way of handling stress as a whole, or do you think there's different approaches to different ways depending on the situation?
I think it can definitely be situational, and also it depends on the person and what works for you. But I think what's been really important to me is that if something that I usually use to deal with stress isn't working, I need to find another way. And that's been made really clear to me in the past few years as I've experienced different types of stress or anxiety that I hadn't been experiencing before.
Right. So going back into your past, can you give an example? I mean, would you be comfortable talking about an actual situation where you've had a lot of stress to deal with?
Yeah, and I can actually kind of talk you through the evolution of my stress, and that might be, and the different ways that I learned to deal with different types of stress. So a lot of my stress is work related, which is true for most of us, I think. And I'm an educator. I was in the classroom for 26 years. So there's a lot of stress related with that. And it's a job any teacher will tell you. It's a really challenging job. And the stress is constant, and it's especially during a big part of the stress is during the day when you're interacting with students. And it's one of those things that you need a lot of emotional energy to interact productively with students when they're being challenging. And so that's a stress that teachers deal with all the time. And in that situation, I had to come up with things that I had to get through minute by minute and hour by hour, because you never knew what was coming up that would stress you out. And dealing with it in a way that's productive, not just for me, but for the child, was so important. So I had to get through each day without losing it with a child, and not without coming home being completely defeated. So I had one of the things that works for me with general stress is to have things to look forward to. And I have short-term things and long-term things. So during the school day, it might be a short-term thing like, oh my goodness, the students who are really challenging are coming in the next minute. I've got to get through the next 2 hours. But then after that, either it will be lunchtime and I can talk to my friends, or school will be out and I can go for a walk. Framing it in a short-term way was really helpful to me. Or it might be Tuesday and I've already just had the worst week. But I've planned something on the weekend to look forward to. And so that I keep that in my sights to keep me going, whether it's, visits with friends or a movie, or I get to, just stay home and relax. But just having something really specific to look forward to helped me. In the years where I just had a super challenging class, or there was something new at school that was really stressful for everyone, I have long-term things to look forward to, and that usually takes the shape of planning for a trip. And I'm a planner. That's how I'm wired. So I enjoy all aspects of planning for a trip, and I actually get months, maybe even years, out of just one trip. In the months leading up, picking the trip, which one do I want to take, considering all of the different trips I could possibly take, is really uplifting for me. And then once I've settled on that, what am I going to do? Even looking up places to stay, getting the cheapest flight, all of those things I get a lot of enjoyment out of. And then after the trip is over, making the photo album of it, I get a lot of enjoyment out of just one trip. So for me, one of my biggest stress relievers is having something to look forward to, whether it's in the next hour or the weekend or 6 months from now.
So that's interesting because it sounds like even on a daily basis, you're breaking down the day into portions. And
Absolutely.
I know that can really help with everything seeming like it's overwhelming. Like if you think I've got to get through the next month at work or the next week or the next day, by actually breaking it down into like in 1 hour's time, it's lunch break. So you know that whatever you've got to deal with in that hour, it's only that hour. And then you move on and then it's lunch break and you can relax. And you then prioritize your break, you know, and that's another thing. People work through their lunch breaks thinking that they're in machine mode or something, you know, and it's great if you're in flow state and you're loving your work or it's a particularly busy day. I'm not like saying that you shouldn't, but I think we should definitely prioritize our lunch breaks and our set breaks throughout the day, because then we go back after that break and we're fresh and ready to attack another period. There's a inspirational person I follow called Robin Sharma, and he has a method where he calls it the 60-10 rule. And actually he works really hard for 60 minutes and then he takes a 10-minute break. And then he works really hard for 60 minutes. So he does the similar thing, and he's a global humanitarian, global leader who leads loads of millionaires. So you're kind of doing what he's doing as well. You're breaking up the day, and then you're prioritizing your rest as well, aren't you? By looking forward to holidays and things.
Yeah, I really do kind of protect my time to decompress. And it's interesting that you talk about lunch. Now, I'm no longer in the classroom. I have a job outside of the classroom, even though I'm still in school. And so I have a little more flexibility on a lot of days with my time. And for my lunch breaks, that is a time for me to recharge. And I even said this to one of my coworkers the other day. And I said, you know what? Can I meet with you in 30 minutes? I just need 15, 20 minutes to eat my lunch and kind of recharge. And then I can give you my full attention with this. And generally what I do during lunch is a lot of times I'm by myself and I might just get on the internet and I play Fantasy Premier League. So I'm on the Fantasy Premier League website and I'm reading the articles or I'm choosing my transfers. But then I also, if the weather is good, it's literally 10 minutes, but I go outside and I walk. And I just walk up the hill to the next school and I come back down. And that helps me get steps and just keep moving. And it also just clears my head, especially if the weather's nice. And the movement, just to piggyback on that idea, the movement during the day is also pretty important. When I was in the classroom, I was really active. I'm just on my feet all day. But when I came out of the classroom and I'm in a computer more, I'm on the computer more, I'm in meetings more, I have to consciously try to give myself a break, especially if I'm sitting at the computer. So every hour or so I'll get up and I'll just walk the halls in the school for 5 minutes, just to be standing, just to be moving, and to get that mental break for a minute.
Yeah, I think that's so important as well. And I put this on my Facebook and online to promote getting outside on your lunch break. There's so many benefits, like, especially if you're working inside. I work in a warehouse, you working in a school, you're inside, you're not seeing any daylight, any natural daylight, unless you're sitting right next to a window. But the serotonin that our brain produces through natural daylight, it hits the retina behind our eye, which sends signals to our brain that releases serotonin, which is like a mood stabilizer, a mood enhancer. So by getting outside on our lunch break, once we've been inside for say 3 or 4 hours, it's so important just to get out and see some daylight. Now, obviously, walking is an ideal thing to do at the same time as seeing the daylight. You can sit outside if you want, but you going for a walk, stretching your legs, breathing in some fresh air, and it takes yourself away from the work environment as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And just as you mentioned, being out in the sunshine, especially, it's just such a mood booster.
Yeah.
Um, Absolutely. The other thing at lunch, I sometimes I have lunch with coworkers, and that's another thing that I've found um, that that's really important to my stress relief is relationships and contact with other people. And by relationships, I mean all kinds of relationships: work relationships, family relationships, friends, um, significant others. Building and maintaining relationships is one of the biggest things that helps me deal with stress. And so sometimes at lunch, I'm at my computer and just decompressing by um, being on the FPL website, but I'm also messaging my friends in my FBL mini league, or I will go and eat with coworkers occasionally and just have that FaceTime with people where hopefully we're talking about something else. Now at work, that can sometimes be challenging because if everybody's miserable, then that can make it worse instead of better. So you kind of have to play it by ear. But overall, dealing with work stress, one of the biggest things that's helped me is maintaining work relationships, and being able to have people you can go to for support in the work environment, with any kind of problem, or even if it's just problem solving something at work. The better the relationship you have with somebody at work, the easier it is to work with them to solve a problem.
Right. Yeah. See, that's a balancing thing, and you've given another light on that for me personally, because I have the approach sometimes where I think it's very important to get along with your work colleagues, because you're with them every single day of your life, apart from the weekends, usually. So to get along with people, I think is important. You don't want to be going into work and everyone's against you, or you haven't got that support. Like you say, when you've got a problem, you know that there's people you can go to in your work for support, and I think that's great. And then on the other hand, when you work with someone every single day, day in, day out, as much as you like each other, you can get on each other's nerves naturally. And that's where going out for a lunch break as well is a good
Mhm.
thing. You literally just reminded me of this, is that just taking yourself away for that period on your own, I think that's quite important as well. So as well as it's important to get along with your work colleagues, I also think there's a balance. And it's actually this balance I wanted to talk to you about actually next, because I know from what you're saying so far, it's like you're balancing your day. In the teaching environment, it's busy, so you're working really hard. You're on your feet a lot. You've got a lot of stress on your plate with the pupils. But then you have your balance, where you have your breaks, you have social social balancing, and you also said that you're then in a position to give your full attention. You just said that you can give your full attention once you've had that time to yourself. And so that's a
Mhm.
balancing thing as well, isn't it? If you take yourself away, you're then in a position to give your full attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, the times when am unhappy and the most stress is when it's more challenging to maintain that balance. I'm really sensitive to when that's out of whack. And that was the newest kind of stress that I experienced because I was in the classroom for 26 years. So I learned how to deal with that stress. It was still stressful, but it wasn't new stress, right? I knew how to deal with it. But when I left the classroom,
Right.
I was in a position where things were new and I was out of my comfort zone. Um, and when I first left the classroom, I had two jobs. I was put in charge of a brand new program. We were becoming an international baccalaureate school, and I was made the IB coordinator. And it was a brand new position. No one had done it before. So there was no roadmap for how to do it. But then I was also told, you're going to do that half time, but then the other half of the time, you're going to be at a different elementary school and you're going to be a reading specialist. And I had worked really hard over about 4 years to get an administrative and supervision endorsement and a reading specialist endorsement. So I had the endorsement, but I'd never done it. And doing something in real life is really different from, actually from what you learn in the classroom. And I was at a school where I didn't know anybody. So that was really challenging because at least with the IB coordinator, everybody at that school knew me and I could work with them. But I was at a brand new school as a reading specialist. So the stress was really different because in both capacities, I was a leader. Suddenly, I wasn't doing my own thing in the classroom. I'm an introvert. So, leading people is a stressor for sure. So what I ended up doing at the new school is I'd get there early every day and I'd just walk the halls and I'd say good morning to people and I'd get to know them and they'd see my face and they'd know me. I wasn't just a name. And I was lucky in that case to have other reading specialists there who could kind of guide me. IB coordinator, I was learning it as I was going along. There was no one to tell me what to do. But again, I was leaning on the goodwill and relationships I had with people at work to kind of get me through that. And that was helpful. But interestingly, all that changed during the pandemic because I worked really hard. We became certified as an international baccalaureate school in 2019, and then 2020, the pandemic hit in March. And when we came back to school in August, and we did come back the teachers had to come back to school in August 2020. I was told, all right, forget about IB. Now you're in charge of testing. So all of a sudden I had a new job. Not only did I have a new job, it wasn't a job I had interviewed for. It wasn't a job I had any experience with. And it was a new job in the pandemic and having to navigate what that looked like.
So these jobs that you are now doing, was that your choice or were these put on you?
The job that I currently am doing, was not my choice.
Right. And
I'm sure other people have had experience with this. And it's actually pretty typical when you leave the classroom for that to happen, I've discovered. And it was actually kind of the opposite of what I wanted to do when I left the classroom, because in my other jobs as an IB coordinator, I was helping teachers teach well. And I was helping students in that way. As a testing coordinator, it's about testing. It's about getting kids into the platform so they can take the test on the computer and making sure that students with special needs are getting their accommodations. And it's about logistics and scheduling and taking tests that nobody wants to take. And whereas in my old job, people found some value in what I was doing, nobody finds value in the testing coordinator or testing, to be completely honest. So that was hard. And the pandemic gave it an extra layer of challenge because as the year progressed, some students came back to school, some students were virtual. And I had a situation where I was arranging state testing for the first time, but it was for students who were at school, for students who are virtual, and I also had to arrange for students to be transported into school to take the test. So I was juggling a lot of plates while I was learning how to do it. And the result for me personally was, for the first time ever, I was feeling, I shouldn't say the first time ever, but I was overwhelmed to a degree I'd never been before. I would wake up at 1 or 2 in the morning and not be able to go back to sleep because immediately my brain clicked in to start problem solving, because I was constantly problem solving, trying to figure out the logistics of getting everything done. So I was going months without getting enough sleep. And for the first time, I felt what could only be described as despair and misery. And I literally didn't know how I was going to get through it. And I don't mean that I was suicidal or anything like that. I was just constantly feeling like viscerally like despair. And so I didn't have the tools that I could usually use to cope with that. You couldn't see your friends as much, right? Because it was the pandemic. I definitely couldn't go. I had a trip with a friend planned to walk the West Highland Way. That got postponed 2 years in a row. So it wasn't even like, I couldn't do my even long-term planning to look forward to something that was gone, completely gone. So what I ended up doing was I called my sister, who is a partner in a Manhattan law firm. So she lives with stress. She works 7 days a week. And I knew that she had to experience some of what I had been experiencing. And so that was a really good idea on my part, because she had some very concrete suggestions for me. One of her suggestions, and we talked about this briefly, was that she said what she does is she makes a list of everything she has to get done. And then she is able to prioritize it and check things off as they're getting done. So she feels like she's accomplishing something. And that is something that I really have put into practice a lot more since I talked to her, when I was able to make a list of what I had to get done for testing and say, okay, this week I'm getting this done. This week I'm getting this done. This week I'm getting this done. I didn't have to wake up as much anymore because I knew when something was going to get done, and I knew when I had planned to figure it out. So that helped a lot. The other thing that she said she did is she went on YouTube and she watched yoga videos. And I did. I found some like 5-minute yoga videos. And I'm not a yoga person. That's something I haven't maintained since that time. But in the moment, I'd pull up a 5-minute yoga video and do it and just kind of get centered and calm.
Yeah, I mean, yoga is also a form of meditation as well, isn't it? You concentrate on your breath work, and your everything else is trying to go from your mind. You're concentrating on being in the moment. That's a really good practice to get into, and writing things down in a list. Once again, you're breaking things down, and I can completely understand now as well how you say that when you said you had ways of dealing with stress before, and then there was another situation where you weren't. And obviously the lockdown, if one of your ways of coping with stress was to see people and get support from people, that's been taken out of your control. Then you're thinking, well, now what do I do to handle the stress?
Right.
And it's also proving that it's a continuing process of learning, isn't it? Like your friend has just discussed 2 different ways that you never probably even thought of before.
Right.
And this podcast and this chat we're having now, you may have just given someone listening another idea and thought, well, you know what, that's a great idea. Let me write it down on a list. Let's write down everything I've got to do this week and we'll tick them off bit by bit. And so that's how it works, isn't it? It's like a continuous learning and growing and improving and finding new ways of handling situations. And there's also, going back to where the work was put on you, some of us, we take on more work because we're trying to push ourselves and we're trying to, get out of our comfort zone, which is a great thing I think we should do. And we try and take on a little bit more than we're doing. And that creates a bit of stress. And sometimes it's good stress because it keeps us on our toes and it gets us into that flow state where it's reachable, but we need to really work hard to get there. So it's within our capabilities. But there's other times where, like with your situation, you get this extra work put on you. It might not even be work. It might be a family problem has just burdened you with their issue, or it could be, there could be numerous of things it's out of your control, but it's been put onto your plate, and so that then gets in the way of your balance. And you know what's good for you. You know what you need to do in order for you to keep your head above the water, to perform every day to the best of your abilities. And there has to be these boundaries in place, don't there? Because if things start muddying our water, from outside and work's one of them where they're now giving you more stress. And so they're dictating what you're doing, and that's interfering with your balance. And sometimes it's good if you can find, like, your friends introduced you with these new tactics to use when you are battling that stress and you can deal with it, then brilliant. But if you can't, there has to be an element of learning to say no as well, don't you think? If something is completely like overwhelming you and there is no way out, sometimes you have to take some action and do something about that.
Yeah, I really think you have to advocate for yourself, and I think you also need to be honest with yourself. I'm pretty self-reflective most of the time, and you really have to listen to when and be honest with yourself about, can I do this or do I really need a break? And then you have to be able to voice that to people, or figure out how to make that happen, for sure.
Yeah, and voicing that to people can be hard, actually, can't it? Because we've all got this element of wanting to please people, especially at work. They kind of, it feels like sometimes your workplace hold your life in their hands because, they dictate what hours you do. They dictate what needs done in the day. And even when you come home from work, this thing. So sometimes it's keeping your work and your life balanced as well, isn't it? And not bringing your work home with you as well, which is, I'm assuming in the teaching business, that's also quite hard.
Mhm.
There's one other thing you mentioned that I just wanted to discuss, and that's you were struggling to sleep. When we
Yeah.
are stressed and overwhelmed, there's a lot of people that can't get to sleep because our minds have, it's like they haven't tied up the loose ends of the day, so they're still untied, and you go into bed with it still on your mind, and then it's affecting your sleep. And then it makes it worse the next day because you're then even more stressed because you're tired. And then my dad said something to me. I always remember one bit of advice my dad said was, Harry, if you're tired, everything the next day becomes harder.
Yeah.
So sleep is so important. How do you value sleep now in your life? Or,
I've always valued sleep, Harry. I'm not going to lie to you. Sleep is really important to me. And I think that was, for me, the big indication that I had to do something because, as you said, when you're tired, it just makes everything that much harder. And so that really became my immediate priority when things were so bad. I knew that was the thing I had to get under control first. I had to get more sleep. And there are things that you can do to help with that. The making the list helps. Getting exercise during the day, not drinking caffeine in the afternoon, all the things. But sometimes, sometimes it's just you do what you can, and you can't always make it happen. But for me, if I'm unhappy, I don't like that feeling, so I actively try to figure out ways to get my balance back and get back to where I'm not feeling badly anymore. Good ways, positive ways, not ways that are hurtful.
Well, this is it as well, because a lot of people, when they're struggling with stress, we then self-soothe and we turn to things in the evening to ease that stress, whether that be alcohol or drugs or junk food. And then some people actually, and I was the same, if I hadn't had a drink of alcohol, like a few beers that evening, I would struggle to get to sleep. And I felt like a few beers enabled me to sleep well, but it didn't enable me. It helped me to get to sleep, but then my sleep quality was really bad throughout the whole night. And so turning to the bad stuff to overcome our stress just creates more stress, because then we don't sleep properly. The quality of our sleep's bad. We wake up tired, hungover, sugar hangover, alcohol hangover, whatever it may be. And then we go into that day and we're not performing at our best. So one thing you said is what you do during the day helps you sleep, and that's exercise. How does exercise play a role in your daily life?
So I always feel like I should be doing more. I'm not someone who's run races or anything like that, but I feel like I should always be moving, and I try to have some kind of movement during the day. And I try to do something every day. During the pandemic, I was lucky because we have a trail in my neighborhood. And so every day I would go out and I'd walk the trail. I'd do 2 or 3 miles on the trail. And I found that I prefer being outside to get my exercise. Um, the challenge with where I live is that in the summer months, it's really hot and humid and miserable, and buggy. So during the summer, unless you can get up super early to walk, that's not a good way to get my exercise. So I'll go to the gym and I'll do treadmill and I'll do some machines. And again, I'm not there for hours. I'm getting in, I'm there for maybe 45 minutes to an hour. Again, my goal is to stay healthy. In terms of exercise and movement. And I feel it is a mood uplifter for sure. Even just getting out of the house, like we said before, if I'm out of the house, I'm in the sunshine, or even at the gym where you're just seeing other people. For me, that's a mood boost, even as an introvert. Just staying in your house all day isn't good. So I feel like exercise is super important, and people need to realize you don't have to run a race, be a marathon runner, or have a major athletic accomplishment. You just need to keep moving. I do love to hike, but I generally have to go a little further afield to do that, so I don't do that as much as I like. But yeah, just getting outside is great.
So once again, it's a balance to your exercise as well. And there are people that take on challenges. I'm one of them. I love to take on half a marathon or push myself into some mental toughness program that demands 2 workouts a day. And the challenge side of it that I get, but to genuinely just feel well every day, I think you can overdo the exercise. It can become a detrimental part of your life if you overdo it. You can burn out, feeling tired all the time. So having that balance of exercise for sure is and an hour in the gym. How many times a week on average do you go to the gym?
Well, maybe 2, not a lot, because as I said, I prefer to walk.
Yeah.
So when I can walk when I get home, if it's still daylight out, I prefer to do that if it's not too hot or if it's not raining. But if it's raining, or like today when it's too hot, I'm going to go to the gym.
Yeah, once again, it's a balance, and walking is exercise, isn't it? So let's not forget that as well.
Right.
Going to the gym is not necessarily, it is exercise, but there's other various things, like you can do yoga at home, like your friend introduced you. And I do that if I stick on a YouTube. But yeah, a lunchtime walk, like we were discussing, that's exercise.
Right.
And how are you? So you exercise, twice a week at the gym. You get your walks in during the week. If you suffer with stress, you write things down, whether it, on a list, yoga. You talk to people. You plan. You've said you plan things. You plan things to look forward to. First of all, what do you do at the weekend?
It's different every weekend. It's so some weeks I'm lucky, and it goes back to relationships. I've lived in Virginia since I was in high school. So I have friends from high school, I have friends from college, I have friends from work. I have, 40 years worth of relationships with people. So I do something with different people every weekend. So I might go on a hike with a friend one weekend. I have a friend where we like to go to a local or a place that's not too far away, and we hunt for fossils every once in a while. Sometimes I go up to Washington, D.C. to go to a museum or to a concert. Sometimes I get together with my friends from college and we watch an FPL game. So it's different every weekend. It's not, even though I'm a creature of routine, I definitely like to do different things on different weekends.
And how so having live the lifestyle that you're living, how is your mental health and your well-being and physical health? How would you say?
How's it?
How would you say that is now, like living the lifestyle that you're living?
Right now I'm in a good place. I'm dealing, a lot of my friends and I, um, we're of a certain age, and our big stressor is coming from aging parents and the challenges that come with that. But again, one of the things that has helped me feel not as isolated, and stressed with that is that all of my friends are going through it, and we are sharing that experience. And we talk through our experiences together and offer each other support and ideas for how to deal with different situations. um, and right now my mental health is pretty good. My physical health is good. I'm i'm lucky because I'm in the middle of planning a trip to look forward to for next June. So I'm in a really good place.
Excellent. Well, that certainly, like, it just proves, doesn't it, that when you do get that balance right, that's for yourself, and you prioritize a healthy lifestyle, it just proves that you're in control, and you feel happy, don't you? You feel much happier, just
Mhm.
regular exercise, regular daylight, and it's just so important. It just like literally it just like reiterates the need to have this lifestyle where we're not overdoing it, and we've got this balance. Things to look forward to is a massive part of it, because I was talking the other day about setting goals as well, and actually setting a goal and setting something to look forward to are both pretty much the same. They both get you motivated to get through the challenges of day-to-day life. So I think it's great for everybody listening just to realize that, just an accomplishment in itself is just a daily lifestyle.
I think so. And I have to apologize because I thought both my cats were locked up and one has just appeared. It started
Hey,
rubbing on the computer. So I was
getting on the
brief-
podcast.
briefly distracted. Um, no, I think the balance is really important. And I also think constantly finding new ways of keeping that balance is really important. And one of the things that's helped me is being open to new experiences. And I've discovered that some of the things that I love the most are things that I just said yes to. And one of the examples is Premier League football. If you had asked my friends and family 5 years ago if I was a sports person or obsessed about sports, they would have laughed at you. But what's interesting is that year that I came out of the classroom and I had the two different jobs and I was super stressed also coincided with a time when a friend from college said, I'm going to start a fantasy Premier League mini league. Who wants to join? And I thought, well, I don't know anything about that, but I like to come up with team names and I like to learn new things. And so I joined, and in about 2 months, I was obsessed. I mean, and I just loved everything about it. I started watching the games. And what was also great about it is that suddenly I was talking to my friends from college every day in a chat about Premier League. And when I'd come home from work that year, that was super stressful, I'd come home and I'd get on my computer and I'd start working on my roster for FPL. And it became one of my primary stress relievers. And I never would have on my own, thought to do that. Another thing that I've recently started doing is taking walking holidays. And that was another situation where a friend said, hey, do you want to do this walk in Scotland? It's called the West Highland Way. And I said, sure, that sounds great. I love Scotland. And it was it was almost a life altering experience to go on that trip.
Right.
Um, it was incredible. And so now I actively plan walking holidays. Like, that's my preferred way of taking a holiday. And it's not like I've done tons of them. I did it first in 2017, and I've done a couple more, but I'm in the middle of planning another one, and again, it's just something I said yes to that ended up really changing my life for the better.
Right, because there's a lot of advice now to say no to things because they interfere with our boundaries and our lifestyle, and so we always emphasise the need to say no, but actually we need to be yes people, not because we're feeling like we're dictating, but we need to say yes in a positive way and have an open mind to things. And when there's an opportunity or a door slightly opens, like kick the door open and walk through there and just see what happens, because the worst that's going to happen is that you go through that door and you think, actually, I don't like this, it's not very nice, and you fail or you feel a bit unhappy and you just walk back again. But if you actually open that door and walk through it and you think, blimey, why didn't I open this door 5 years ago, And so you never know, do you, until you actually say yes with a positive mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to do that more and more. My tendency is I am a creature of routine. So breaking my routine does create anxiety, even in small ways when my routine has changed. So I actively pushing myself to break my routine sometimes is also important to deal with the stress of not being in the routine.
Yeah, 100%. I think we should always be looking to push ourselves out of our comfort zone on a regular basis, because I think it does keep us on our toes. It gives us new opportunities, and like it can reignite some passion in our life sometimes, can't it? And then it's just getting that balance. Like you say, the balance is the key thing with everything. So learning when to push yourself, how far to push yourself out of your comfort zone, and then when to say no because you're too busy, when to say yes, like next week I'm free, let's go for a hike. It's just important to find that balance. How did you find just out of curiosity, I'm about to do the West Highland Way myself. I've been planning it for a year. I've done the South Downs Way, but what was the West Highland Way?
I'm so jealous. I would do it every year if I could. So the West Highland Way, it was incredible scenery, obviously, but also everything about it was extreme. The scenery was extremely beautiful. The weather was extreme. I mean, we saw all sorts of weather, but one of the best parts of it was the people that you met along the way. So because it's such a famous trail, there are people from all over the world who hike that trail, and I've done it twice now. The first time I did it, at the very beginning of the trip, our first night before we started walking, we stayed in this bed and breakfast, and in the morning, on everybody's table at breakfast, there was the flag of the country where they were from. And so there was a couple from Belgium at one table, and then there were some younger kids from Switzerland at a table, and there were a couple of guys from Germany at a table. And it turns out that as you walk the West Highland Way, you see these people every day because you're all going in the same direction. You all have the same goal. Yeah. And then you see them in the pub at night. And so I've met people, especially on my first trip, that I'm still in touch with from other countries because of our experience on the West Highland Way. And to me, that was almost the best part of it. And so I did it the first time, and then when a friend asked me, she said, I want to do a hiking trip. Can we do that one you did a couple of years ago in Scotland? I said, absolutely. And it was actually even better the second time because the weather was better, and I knew what to expect. So I prepared. I was a little more prepared physically and with the gear and stuff that I needed. But like I said, I would do it every year if I could. But I'm trying to make myself do other places so that I experience other places. I think everybody was their best selves on the trail, for sure. Yeah, and just met some incredible people. It was so fun. I'm so jealous. You're gonna have the best time.
Well, I was supposed to go last year. I put it off Wasn't right really in the mindset last year. But I'm definitely doing it next year. I think springtime, maybe May time. I'm definitely doing it now. So yeah, I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to that for sure.
Yeah, you need to do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your advice, Katya. I'm sure people are going to take something away from this. I actually know a couple of people, especially in the teaching line of work, and I know that it's a stressful environment. So I know there's going to be certain people who will be listening who will. Number one, it's just nice to hear that you're struggling or have struggled with that stress in a work environment, in a busy, stressful work environment as well, because sometimes you can feel like you're the only one who suffers stress and that everybody else seems to be fine. So it's actually
Right.
quite reassuring to know that first of all, everybody can succumb to stress and there's a way out of it if you just learn to apply some techniques, some lifestyle changes, some balance to your life, some things to look forward to. It would really help to overcome that. So thanks very much for talking about that. And just before you go, if there's one piece of advice, just one golden rule that you could share to our listeners, what would that be for them to take away?
I think it's hard to pick, but I think it would be to be mindful about maintaining relationships, because those are the more relationships you have, the more resources you have. Never depending on one person to help you get through something, but whether it's your neighbors, your coworkers, your friends, your family, really being mindful about just maintaining those relationships, so you have a wide network of support.
That's actually direct advice for me. I talk about how we should all improve in all areas of our life, and my social life is definitely something that needs improving for me. I feel like I know how to get on top of my health, and I know how to get on top of my mental health when I need to, and my workplace and my balance and everything. But my social aspect definitely is an area where I score a low score, and I'm quick to write people and get rid of people in my life, because I feel like I've been on a massive change recently in the last few years of my life. And so you kind of need people around you that align with what you now believe in, because your beliefs change, and it's no one's fault. You're not getting rid of them because they're a horrible person. It's just that you have to separate yourself from people that don't align. And I find that I'm on this I'm trying to change who I am and improve who I am. And sometimes you have to separate people. And for your own mental well-being, we discussed about how people can dictate pressures onto you and make you stressed. And it attacks your boundaries, because then it brings you down. And so I think it's a positive move to distance yourself from some people. But then I find myself that I'm in this no man's land, because I'm in the process of meeting new people, and I've sort of left my old lifestyle behind. And so I'm in this sort of like middle ground where it's quite a lonely place. And I don't feel lonely. I'm really happy on my own, and I don't need anybody in my life. But you are going to need people, like you say, you're going to need support from time to time. And I need to definitely improve on that, because it's very quick. There's an illustration I watched once of a whiteboard, and there's this big I'll take my board behind me. There's this big whiteboard here, and there was a big black dot in the middle. And the speaker who was giving the presentation said, "What do you see on the board?" And everybody said a black dot. But actually, the speaker said, "Well, actually, I see a big whiteboard, but you're all focusing on the black dot." And what it was saying is we're focusing on the negative in people rather than the positive. And I get sucked into this. I will see something that I don't like about someone, and I'll just get rid of them. But I'm not focusing on the positives about them. And I need to change my outlook on this. I need to become more sociable, more understanding and empathetic towards other people. and I need to not be so like harsh on people's conduct.
Yeah, and the challenge in that is doing that while keeping yourself safe, right?
Mm.
And if it's someone who it's easier to lapse into like behaviors you didn't want to, that's one thing. But if it's someone who's just annoying, or or there's just one thing about them, then maybe you don't want to write them off. One of my big takeaways has been, as someone who's single, is you can't sit around and wait for people to ask you to do things. You have to go and ask people. And again, that's, as a planner, that's what I do. And I have, different friends for different things. And maybe that's something that can be helpful to you.
Yeah.
You have your hiking friends, you have your museum friends, you have,
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I think every friend can serve a purpose for you, can't they? As well as you provide a purpose in some aspects of their life.
Right.
I mean,
Nobody has to be everything to you.
no.
Right. And that's the beauty of having a network.
And it's once again, we come down to balancing, because I'm so focused on my health, my physical health, my mental health. I'm so focused on making sure I'm in a good place that my friend Gary the other day invited me out for a round of golf. And I said no, because I'm so focused on, I need to do my food shopping, and I want to cook my dinner, and I want to work on my podcast. But sometimes I should just drop all that and think, do you know what? A round of golf is actually quite important with my friend, and I've kind of neglected that sort of area of friendship.
I had that exact same experience yesterday. I went with some friends. I have a group of friends, and it's one of my friend's birthdays. And for her birthday, she wanted to go to the beach. Well, the beach is a couple hours drive away. We went. The other friend has a mom who lives on the beach, so we drove to the friend's mom's house, and then went to the beach, and then we went to the pool, and then we came back to the beach, and then we went out to dinner. And the whole time I'm thinking, I need to be at home. I have X, Y, and Z. I'm going to have to get everything done tomorrow. And I had to like mentally talk myself down from that and kind of be in the moment and tell myself, you're sitting in the sun next to the water. It's nice. You're talking to your friends. This is good. Your friends are important. No, maybe ideally, you don't necessarily want to be here, but it's important that you are. And it will be okay. You don't really have to get everything done tomorrow. And so I really had to talk myself through it. So I completely understand what you're saying. And I think those feelings are normal. But yeah, again, it's kind of knowing when, kind of listening to yourself and knowing, no, I have to do this better, that I do this in the long run than staying home and, watching football and cleaning my house. So yeah, but again, every day is a new set of decisions. So you can't feel bad about, don't waste a lot of time. Reflect on, I try to reflect on every day and then make a new decision moving forward.
Yeah, that's it. And decisions are so important in the balance, isn't it? Like, I think every time you make a decision, if we took into account everything, our social, our health, our, the whole of our well-being in general, then I think we should base our decisions on getting that balance right.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of feel balance has been quite a good topic of this whole conversation. It stems really around about that, doesn't it?
It seemed to, yes.
Yeah. And it's one of my 3 fundamentals, actually. Balance. I've always said that balance for me is so important. So it is a great conversation to highlight that fact again.
Oh, great.
Well, thank you so much, Katya, for coming on the pod. I really do appreciate you coming on.
Well, you're very welcome. I appreciate being asked.
Yeah, no, it's great. And there's so much advice there in this chat we've had. So many different areas where we can all take something from it. And that's the whole purpose of this podcast, is to invite guests on who, they've got so much advice that we can all offer each other as individuals, successes that we've accomplished, in order for the listeners to take just something from that to try and do something to improve their life. And it could just be something small that could make such a big difference in the whole outlook of our life. Because when we improve ourselves, we improve our life.
I agree.
Thank you, Katya.
Thank you so much, Harry. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you on. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Make it balanced.
Okay, I will.
Take care.
Okay, bye.